Hello students, today we are going to see about what's the Greek model of DNA and the history of DNA discovery. So if I'm telling about the discovery of DNA, I think you remember two scientists, Watson and Crick. Of course, we all know that the greatest structure finding of Watson and Crick um, is one of the greatest finding of all time. But the discovery of DNA double helix and other things is always more controversial. We'll see what is the history of DNA and other things. So before the Watson and Crick structure identification, the Rosalind Franklin, she's one of the greatest scientists. She worked on X-ray photography of DNA. And based on her studies only, Watson and Crick, they have described the um structure of the DNA. So it is one of the greatest finding before the Watson Crick model identification. So actually, the Watson Crick structure identification during the 1940 to 53. So before that, the search for the secret of life, it's date back nearly a century prior to the Watson and Crick uh, model identification. So just we'll go back and we'll see the history of DNA. I think we all know that Gregor Mendel, he's the man of science and the man of genetics, and popularly we are calling as father of genetics, right? And actually, first he only introduced the concept of heredity. Okay, I think you're all aware of heredity. Some characters are transferred from one generation to another generation. So he done the model experiment in the pea plants. So the concept of heredity was introduced by the great Mendel during the 18th century. Okay, so based on his studies only, the most of the scientists they have worked on some things or some material are responsible for the transfer of genetic material from one generation to another generation. So after that, there are a lot of scientists they have worked related to the DNA, gene, and heredity. I will here I have noted only the important scientists they have worked from the 18th to 19th century. During the 19th century, during 1999, Wilhelm Johansen, he only coined the term gene. That's the thing. Actually, during the 1945 only, Watson and Crick introduced the model and they have worked on the DNA. But before that itself, during the 909 itself, the Wilhelm Johansen he coined the term gene. Okay, so some material, some part of the DNA is called gene, right? So this already before the DNA model identification itself, the person he termed the name gene in the DNA. Okay, and during 1911, Thomas Hunt Morgan, he is another notable scientist. He discovers that genes are responsible for the inheritance. Actually, Gregor Mendel, he noted that some material are transferred from one generation to another generation, and he put a very basic identification. That is actually very important. So based on that studies only, further many scientists they have worked on that. Um, Inheritance and genes, and they have identified a lot of things. So during 1911, Hunt Morgan he discovers that genes are responsible for the inheritance. Then Levin, okay, he is another scientist. He discovered that DNA is made up of nucleotides. That means the DNA is containing the phosphate, sugar, and four bases. You just think that before the Watson and Crick model identification, before the 30 years itself, they have identified all the things. What they have done means they have identify the model. For the model identification only they have got the Nobel Prize. But before that, there are a lot of science they have worked on the DNA and its structure. And during 1944, I think we all know that, and you all studied in your school that he performed an experiment and showed that the genes were responsible for heredity, and he explained that DNA can transform the property of the cell. So the DNA is the whole material. It's responsible for the heredity, and also for DNA can transform the some of the properties from the cell. It will transfer to the another generation through the DNA. But actually, during the time, this idea, he displayed the experiment, but the idea was not accepted universally. But I don't know the reason why they are not accepted. Then after that, during 1950, Chargaff, we all know that Chargaff rule, right? The number of adenine is equal to thymine, and number of guanine is equal to cytosine. So the Chargaff rule is one of the important equation in the discovery of structure of the DNA. Erwin Chargaff's this calculation of adenine and purines and pyrimidines is very important before the structure identification. Then the Rosalind Franklin, he only took the pictures using the X-rays in 1930. I told, right, the base thing for Watson Crick model structure identification is Rosalind Franklin pictures of X-ray, pictures of DNA. And also along with Rosalind Franklin, another scientist named Wilkins. He also worked along with the Rosalind Franklin. So they investigated the DNA structure by X-ray diffraction method. By using the X-rays, they have took the pictures of DNA and they have invented something. So based on this study, the Watson Crick in 1953, they have discovered the double helix by building the model to confirm the Franklin's X-ray data and Chargaff rule. Now we'll see what after the model identification, Watson Crick, they have given some features of DNA. We'll see what is that. So from the X-ray diffraction data of Rosalind Franklin, James Watson and Francis Crick, they proposed a model for the structure of DNA during the 1953. And after 10 years only, they have noted and they have awarded for the Nobel Prize for this invention. Then they have again they have reconfirmed the same structure and function, but they have based on the model they have done something. Here we will see what they have done. They have confirmed that DNA is a double helix of two complementary anti-parallel strands, and both the strands are wound each other in a rightward direction. So based on the model, they have confirmed the DNA is a double helix and is anti-parallel and wound each other in a rightward direction, not leftward direction. Like they have identified many things, and also the helix are strands are stabilized by the hydrogen bonding between the bases. This also they have identified. And in 1963, they have awarded for the Nobel Prize for the discovery of the structure of the DNA. But during this award, they didn't even mention the Franklin's keyword. Actually, based on the Franklin's work only, they have identified the things, but they didn't mention. But actually, this is uh, uh, not that much thing. But actually, it's like a controversial in that time. But whatever, so they are the Watson Greek also they are great scientists, and they have after this model identification only we will get more ideas about the DNA. But in some literature they have mentioned that there is no mention of Franklin's keyword like. So this may be some controversial during that time due to something. Now we'll see what is the we'll look into the Watson-Crick model of DNA. They have confirmed the same thing that each nucleotide is having a deoxyribosugar phosphate group and bases, and they have based on the model they have reconfirmed that bases are in the interior of the helix and aligned at a nearly 90-degree angle relative to the axis of the helix. So based on the model, they have give lot of information. Here you can see the Watson-Crick model of DNA. Actually, this is B form of DNA. There are different types of forms of DNA, right? So this the structure of the Watson-Crick model of double helical structure is a B form DNA. Here you can see a lot of things. We will see one by one.